Hey, today I want to talk about Princess Elizabeth Bagaya of Toro Kingdom. She was born on 9th February 1936, and her parents were Omkama George Rukidi and her wife Queen Kezia Bianjeru. And she was born in Kabarole district in a small town called Fort Portal. She attended Chivambe Girls in Fort Portal and later on went to a boarding school in Buganda called Gayaza High School. And later on, during that time, they allowed most of the royals, for children from the royal family, to study in England, and later on she enrolled in Shibon School, and she was the only black child in the whole school, and the rest of them were white aristocrats. Later on, she was admitted to Cambridge University, and she became one of the first three black African girls to graduate from Cambridge University, one from Sierra Leone, another one from Nigeria, and she was also the only Ugandan girl. And later on, she took a course that was called barrister at law, and she was offered a job in the English bar, and she became the first East African woman to be offered a job in the English bar. When she returned in Uganda in 1965, she joined Kazora and Co Advocates, and she did her internship for 6 months, and she was offered a job at the Uganda bar, and she became the first woman lawyer in Uganda. In 1966, Obote abolished kingdoms in Uganda, and his brother and his father Omkama George Rukidi passed on, and his brother Omkama David Matthew Olimi Kaboyo took over. Bagaya came back from England and buried his father, and also had to attend the overthrowing of his brother. And later on in 1967, when Princess Margaret and husband Lord Snowdon visited Uganda, invited her to participate in the London Fashion Week, and Obote was against this proposal, but Binaisa advised him to go and represent her country. Bagaya left the country and took off in the plane. After taking off in the plane, Obote sent the police to come and pick her, and found when it was already too late. She had already arrived. She had already took off. When she reached in England, she participated in the fashion week, in the London Fashion Week, and whites were so amazed by a black woman showcasing all the African culture wears in the Malbec house. And later on, she stayed there in exile. She kept on participating in different fashion shows. She traveled in different countries and participated in different fashion shows, and later on Forbes magazine employed her as one of their models. And then after, Princess Elizabeth Bagaya became the first black African princess to appear on the Vogue, in the 4-page spread Vogue magazine. And later on, she came back to Uganda, and she was put under house arrest because she had left the country without the knowing of the president. And later on in 1974, Amin appointed her as a minister of foreign affairs, and she was in this position for only 9 months, from February to November, after being the chairperson of the UN summit in the same year, and spoke out the evils that had been doing by the government of Amin. Amin almost killed her, but due to the local pressure and the international pressure, because she had already got international recognition with very, very big leaders outside Uganda, she was protected and she was never killed. And later on, Princess Elizabeth Bagaya participated in the movie Queen Things Fall Apart, that was premiered in 1971, and later on in 1984 she premiered in the movie Queen of the Jungle, Sheena. After being the Minister of Foreign Affairs for quite a long time, Bagaya became the first woman minister in Uganda. Later on, she left Uganda, and in 1981 to 1986, she married her husband, Prince Wilberforce Nyabongo, who later on passed on in 1986 after being in a plane crash, since he was an aviation engineer. And later on, Princess Bagaya went back to England, and she later on became the presidential advisor of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni between 1986 to 1988, and the ambassador of Uganda in America between 1986 to 1988. And later on, Bagaya organized the first meeting that led to Museveni meeting one of the biggest leaders that were in America during that time. That was George Bush and Ronald Reagan in 1987. And also she became the High Commissioner of Nigeria. And later on, Bagaya left public service and she decided to go back to England. She started participating in charitable works, and in 1989 Bagaya released her book The Odyssey of an African Princess and Elizabeth of Toro. And later on in 1995, when in the 1995 constitution that restored the kingdoms by Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, Bagaya decided to come back in Uganda and go back to her hometown in Toro Kingdom and rebuild again the kingdom. And in the same year, his brother Omkama David Matthew Olimi Kaboyo passed on, and his son Omkama Oyonyimba Kabamba Iguru took over the throne. By that time, Omkama Oyonyimba was a very young child, very young at the age of 3 years, and her aunt Princess Elizabeth Bagaya, the sister to her father, became the regent of his brother's son. And Bagaya currently is a presidential advisor